is our moderator tonight. She runs digital transformation for A.T. Kearney. And a couple interesting facts about her to get the night started is she's a vegan, so I'm a vegetarian. She's more hardcore than I am. She does solo performance work, writing and performing stories, and I know she just had an event recently in San Francisco. She met George Lucas at the Francis Ford Coppola's house. Anyone been to the winery before? It's a must-see. My best friend actually got engaged there, so it holds a special place in my heart. It's a really cool winery. She teaches a race and gender military history class. And she researches and writes academic papers about history and popular culture. So with that, I'd like to bring Eloise up to kick off the panel this evening.
Well, I sound way more interesting than she says it. Welcome. I'm glad to be here. We're going to have fun tonight. It's Tuesday night after a long vacation, or after a 3-day weekend. And those that know me know that I don't follow scripts, I don't follow rules, and so we'll probably go wandering all over the place. But we will have fun and we will learn some stuff. Before we get started, I do want to thank our sponsors. So first and foremost, Sarah and Real Sourcing Network. And I just tell this story I introduced Sarah to a lot of clients. So when she reached out to me to make the introduction, she's like, oh, dude, I have a print sourcing solution. And I'm thinking, this was just last year, I'm thinking, oh my God, we did this like 2 decades ago. Like, print is dead. But I talked to her, and she's like, she convinced me, and now I'm a believer. And now I introduce her to all my clients because I'm like, print's not dead. You got to meet her. So anyway, so RSN, thank you for sponsoring this, as well as Rapid Ratings. And Adam, where are you? I'm going to call you all. I told you, you never know what to expect with me. But so they do financial risk, and every client I go to, and we talk about SRM and financial risk, always Rapid Ratings. So I'm not even sure you have competitors, but that's a different issue. Center Trade, so Brendan. There you go.
Brenton.
Yay. So very nice source to pay suite. I actually saw it earlier this year, and their customers are very happy, and they have a nice customer base. So if you have a source to pay need, see Brenton. Amanda with HPP, they will make your suppliers better, or if you're a supplier, they will make you better. So and it's a very recent startup, and Amanda and I go way back, and she's like lighting it on fire in less than a year. So she's definitely somebody to watch. And then Tech Wisdom, Sanjeev and Manish.
Yes.
Well, Sanjeev is not here, but I represent him.
Good. So IT staffing, contingent labor, sourcing. They have VMS integration, which is always the first question that comes up. So yeah, definitely if you have that need, and who doesn't have that need in this area, reach out. Just one couple housekeeping notes. Please silence your cell phones and stuff. Tuesday night, nobody needs to get to that badly. And then I will, as you can probably tell, I have one of those brains bounce all over the place. So be aware, I will ask the audience questions. We can make this two-way interactive. Do not hesitate to fire questions at me. So with that, I'm going to ask our panel, esteemed panel, to come up. The first thing you will notice while they're coming up, I'll just say that come on, have a seat. Them to introduce themselves, but the first thing you'll notice is an all-female panel. And
Yeah, ladies.
it's not only awesome, but I was at a client pitch last week where there were 18 people, and 17 of which were men. And me. So good. So it's really nice to be here. So we're going to start with Jerry. We'll go down the line, and I'll ask you to introduce yourselves, and then we'll get started.
I'm Jerry Sessler. I'm a consultant of almost 40 years. Started out with A.T. Kearney in Chicago and went to PwC. I've been independent for a number of years, since 2000 and change, roughly 2000. I returned to PwC briefly for 3 years and then decided to go back on my own because it was soul crushing. So I'm currently at Stanford Healthcare and started out as an interim role 29 months ago and hired my replacement a year ago and they won't let me go. So we're opening a new adult hospital on Sunday.
Oh.
And so that is, we've been dealing with all the procurement challenges associated with that. Fit up, construction, etc. So it's been a challenge. Healthcare is crazy.
Yes,
Something
it-
you might need to reach out to.
Yeah, actually, you
Yeah.
might get a pass. All right,
Yeah.
Erin.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Erin Riley. I have been in supply chain systems implementation, maintenance, change management for about 15 years. I started off with a local food manufacturer, and I've been now with the University of California with the Office of the President for about 8 years now. I have the pleasure of working with the 10 campuses. Most days it's a pleasure, since there's no one here from UC. Yeah, so source to pay, and then analytics, data, and I'm on my second round of digital transformation.
Nice.
And surviving.
Linda.
I'm surviving. Gray hairs and wrinkles, but surviving.
I'm really 20.
Good evening, I'm Linda Guzzi. So for the last 32 years, I have been in procurement, supply chain, mostly the production space, but in later years did the indirect procurement arena. I was able to cut my teeth very early on transformation as I was working for the first CPO at IBM many years ago, which sort of started the passion and journey for change and transforming organizations and realizing that it's all about people, process, tools, and measures. They all have to work hand in hand. I've been really fortunate to have big companies in my background and came to really love working in that environment. So it's been a great ride. System implementations, source to pay, end-to-end supply chain has always been kind of what I have hoped to do and was able to, take on positions that will keep building out that. I'm here today because I was introduced to Sarah almost a year ago. And again, love developing teams and people and love the fact that she had passion, vision, tenacity, and I really want to support her, journey. So, thank you.
And Amy.
Thank you. Amy Fong. I am with Everest Group.
Happy
We're laughing
birthday.
because I'm like practicing. So Everest, for those of you who are not familiar with Everest Group, is a research and consulting firm that covers the services industry. So a lot of outsourced services, anything in IT services, call centers, engineering services, anything you would hire, outsource outside of your organization. They're kind of the Gartner for services. So I'm working on that spiel because I've only been there for like a day. But in my role, I bring that content and market intelligence to CPOs and category managers to better manage their services relationships with suppliers. So prior to that, Sarah's laughing over there because I just transitioned. Prior to that, I was with the Hackett Group for the last 10 years doing source to pay advisory. So a lot of research, a lot of membership, relationships with some of the people in this room, mostly in the enterprise side, some on the solution provider side as well. And before that, I was in consulting for a little while and in industry before that with HP and Sunoco products.
Great. So as you can see, we've got a great panel full of experience from research to practical to executive and so forth. So this should be great. So the topic's digital procurement, right? Digital is all we hear. It's all digital. So first question to the audience, show of hands. How many of you think it's like the pinnacle, the Prodigy, if you go back to the title of this? Digital is the Prodigy, something we should be excited about? Yes? No? Okay. How many of you think it's the devil child? Any? Joe? Oh, well, one. Okay, we got a couple. Well, that means
Answered which way.
All right. So one of the. Oh, thank you. One of my big pet peeves is nobody defines digital. We talk about digital procurement as if everybody knows what that is, but I surprisingly, including a lot of my colleagues, actually can't define it. So I'm gonna kick it off with Amy and ask her to define digital. and she saw the question in advance. And maybe you can, two-part question, talk about what's going on in the broader digital market given your background.
Sure. So I'll start with digital is not a procurement thing. It is an enterprise thing. It is a world thing, right? So the whole world has changed. I think we all know that. Economics has changed. The way businesses have to react to things have changed. We have creative innovation, destructive innovation in probably almost every segment. So things move faster. Anybody who lives in the world of B2C knows that the way you interact with businesses have changed. Well, from an enterprise perspective, there's that change as well, and there's that pressure. The other thing that's happened, kind of the ecosystem, is that technology has evolved to the fact that we can do a lot more than we could in the past, 5-10 years ago even, and it's much more accessible, right? Easier to buy, easier to implement, easier to customize, easier to make it all interact together. So digital is a bit of the convergence of that, to me at least, is that external, pressure that we have in the enterprise and the availability of technology to change the way we service customers and the way that we service and build value, right? If you look at it at a very broad enterprise perspective, your CEO now has different tools and the expectations of the market are different, and digital is about using technology to deliver that value better. So that's the way I think of it. It's a very, very much a value proposition, and how do we enable that with the technologies that are available to us. Now when you push that down, when you're inside of an organization in our day jobs, it means that we all need to change the way we support the business. From a source to pay perspective, it probably means we need to be more agile, we need to be more insightful, we need to go deeper and broader in the categories that we cover, we need to improve our supplier relationships, and probably the number one thing is we need to be more customer and stakeholder centric. So digital to me is not just the technology, it's how you use technology to enable that business value for your customers, for your enterprise, both internal and external. And it's a long answer, but I will say that to me, procurement has to deal with it in two ways. One is we have to digitalize ourselves, right? So procurement needs to go digital, but we also have to support the whole enterprise. So, IT is out there buying all kinds of stuff, right? And every function is out there buying all kinds of stuff that's digital that they didn't buy 5 years ago, and we have a role in managing that as well.
That's great. Okay, so I'm going to build off that. So you said CEO expectations, right? And so Linda, this question's for you. If the CEO wants this change, the CEO reads the same things, reads that same research, how do you build the business case for change, and how do you articulate the benefits and, more importantly, realize the benefits?
Right. So, in my experience, spending that time with the C-suite is critically important, as well as maybe some of your very key stakeholders if you're in a business unit structure. And, we are here in procurement not to be egocentric, but to really try to understand, as Amy said, the enterprise. So how are we solving problems that the C-suite is trying to solve? And how are we aligning with the initiatives? How are we aligning with the objectives? And ensuring that we're spending the time to truly, understand. And honestly, you get to the place of negotiating what these expectations are going to be, because as many of us probably have experienced, there's scope creep in a project, and there's scope creep, in those expectations. So that alignment around expectations, what are we here to deliver, and how we're going to deliver it. There is a whole business case, that you can develop, and working with really critically important your stakeholders, because again, this can't be seen as something that procurement is doing to the business. This is an enabler for them. You're here solving problems for them. And so how do you really look at this? Traditionally you look at it from an ROI perspective. I would encourage it to be very tangible when you're looking at it from an ROI, and I think Erin will talk a little bit about that later. But then also really trying to reach out on business value and how this is going to improve the stakeholder experience, why this is something that the business is really keen to have, versus us with that projection of, we're here from procurement, we're here to help, and please do it our way. So that would be some of what I would share.
So let me ask on that.
Yeah.
two scenarios. One is you have this plan to take it to the CEO, and how do you think about that? And the second is that the CEO walks into your office and says, why are we not doing this? So how do you deal with both situations?
So, I think it's important that from a communication perspective and how you're building you have to build the conversations with your stakeholders, your CEO or CFO or, CIO, or all of them are really part of that conversation. And putting it forward with what are we, what does the digital transformation look like? What are the business processes that are going to change? How are we going to need them to be part of it and engage the people in their business to, again, do things differently, train them up, really deploy and be, again, integral to the success of the business. I also think, as you said, if CEOs, kind of back in the office, we have to be consistent with how we're measuring that success. And it shouldn't be that, we go off and we start working away and there's, silence around what we're doing, how we're doing it. So how do you create a cadence of regular communication, steering committees, getting your executive sponsors built, because the C-suite, let's be honest, they don't want to hear from us all the time. But how do we get them to invite some folks that then we do the regular rigor with some financial business partners as well, so that, again, you're covering your bases in terms of people understanding progress. Yes, this is what you said you were going to do. I think that's critically important as we're going through, major changes.
Great. All right, so let's say we've got funding, we've got initiative. Erin, why don't you tell us, how do you go about doing a digital transformation, and how do you approach it? You've done it now a couple times. What would you
in 2 minutes, Erin.
What
wisdom would you impart?
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting how aligned we are since we didn't realize we just met. So I think the first thing is engaging your stakeholders, right? Amy mentioned it, is figure out, use them to establish what your goals are. Really, where are you trying to go? Don't go away in a vacuum and decide where you want to go with your supplier, with whoever it might be, right? With your C-suite. Bring them to the table both for buy-in and you're going to get good ideas, right? That's as a team effort. That's the way that you're going to ensure success as you move forward. The second thing, when you're taking that plan for your transformation to the C-suite, make sure that you don't have to focus solely on the ROI, but make sure that it's manageable, right? Scope it, structure it effectively, right? Phased approaches. You are transforming, right? So this is going to be big. You're not tweaking around the edges, but you don't have to boil the ocean in a year, right? Your users, your clients, you like that one? It's going to be more palatable, right? And it's going to actually stick if you can show incremental progress. And then that goes back to what Linda said about the monitoring, right? And the third step is, once you've got things going, we're really talking about the way business is going to be as we move forward. This isn't, again, a 1 year, a 3 year. With all the technology that's been being delivered, with the differences, with the speed that it's being delivered, you need to create that culture that things are going to change and keep changing, right? Don't drop it, don't run. What are my goals for this quarter? How am I going to communicate out my successes? How am I going to be open about the challenges and what I'm going to turn to next quarter? So keep the sales and marketing aspect of it as part of your entire culture, your transformation, if you're going to call it that. I also think you have to be a little bit careful about how you talk about it, right? Because it's not a one and done. It's going to keep going. So be smart about how you label it, how you market it, and how you're bringing people to the table. So
Erin, what are the things you mentioned? I know you have a lot of remote people that you work with, and I think that's getting more and more common. How do you recommend you manage that sales and marketing communication with remote teams and people? Do you have any tips or things that were a disaster that we can learn from, or things that have worked really well?
Frequently and loudly engage. Right, so there's all these messages going on, right? There's all this change coming at us, flying at us, and you need to be loud, consistent, and regular, right? I'd rather somebody put an auto roll in their email box or not be able to show up to my meeting because they're tired of hearing from me. I never want to hear, oh, I didn't know about that, right? So get that message out. Find a local champion. There's multiple vehicles. So we do monthly webinars, we do in-person webinars, I do short videos, I do emails. So it really is your systems team, right, or your business ops team has to have that sales and marketing, right, tweak's not right, but focus and expertise, because you do turn into a very loud advocate, right, from a central office, have your loud advocate from whatever the decentralized location is, and just keep talking about it. Keep it in front of people.
Great. I'm going to come back to the brand of procurement because I think you hit on something really important. But let me give Jerry your opening question about if your organization is not that mature today, right? Can you leapfrog by adopting digital, or what's that journey look like if you're immature today?
If you're immature, you can't skip puberty. So it's kind of like trying to understand what you can do today, what you can do tomorrow, pick and choose your battles, understand it's not a race, it is something you're doing over a period of time, and you are determining what your deliverables and milestones are every month, every quarter, every 6 months, every year. And so that's really, really important, and communicate early and often. Healthcare is a perfect example of this. I've been in healthcare for the last 20 years. I also do chain retail, utilities, and several other industries. But healthcare is a special job. And so, just to give you an example, currently at Standard Healthcare, we have multiple ERP systems on different versions of the ERP code. We can ask the same question of our systems 10 times a day and get a different answer. It's not a good thing. And so digital procurement, where we're looking at item master issues, units of measure, etc. We've got a buyer group that is struggling to make sure that the contract information matches the PO, matches the invoice. It ain't happening because we didn't have contracts module activated in our ERP system to begin with. So this is a challenge in trying to get people who are impatient, and I was laughing at you before when you said that, and individuals who think, oh, digital procurement, let's do that. Let's bring in XYZ data solution. Let's build it ourselves, because in healthcare, you gotta build it yourself. You can't buy it from the outside. And God knows Tableau is a spend analytics tool. No, it's not. Okay? So, you've got to take a step back and go, okay, what is it we do have? What can you do with it? What insights does it give you? And where do you go from there? And then figure out, okay, what do we need to accomplish, and what kind of tools do we need to get us there? That's the most important thing. Do you build them? Or no? Or do you find the right tool that's out there for you? Don't take it all on at once. Don't try to do an entire digital transformation in healthcare. You're a less mature company. Do a quick one. Spend analytics. Something that shows. You can say, see, we did this, we automated it, and now we're saving money because we have transparency in our spend. Now what can we do with that? Oh, well, gee, let's do the next thing. Stages.
So let's build on that, Amy. I'm going to ask you, take that situation, and how would you tell them to build their journey out from there?
That's where you start.
Yeah, basically where you
Yeah, so, I've got kind of two parts of this answer. And the first part is, you got to start with the core automation and not the really fancy stuff that you see in all the articles that we write and that we push out there. So, I mean, I know we all want the blockchain, but nobody's ready for blockchain. If it's not ready for you, that's not where you start, right? So if you have, your transactional processes are still, paper invoices and requisitions and 10% of your spend on catalogs, all over the place, and manual, and you need to focus on that first, and then you layer on. You need to get rid of the paper. You need to get, and I'm just gonna, I know this offends a lot of people, but when you're scanning stuff and scanning your paper invoices, that's not digital either. That is big companies that are somewhere in between. You need to get over that hump of just have a clean process and get your data all in one place and aligned. And there's a lot of different debates on, where data should be and where it should live and everything. But for, I think, I'm gonna throw out some old Hackett data off the top of my head, something like 30% of organizations have full visibility to their spend data, right? If you don't even know what you're spending, you're not ready to put artificial intelligence on top of it. And I mean, I used to joke with like the P2P people that like the robots, they don't read papers. So they're seeing any AI you put on is gonna have a half version of the truth, right? So you really need to start with that core stuff. And then when you start looking at, the digital, the emerging technologies, as I call them, artificial intelligence, or even machine learning, or in some cases RPA, or blockchain, Internet of Things, all of that, right? You need to start layering that on based on what your goals are. So when we go back to what are we trying to be when we grow up? Do we want to have, what's the business trying to be? Do we want to be able to react to external market changes really, really quickly by shifting our supply chain? Do we want to have, deep analytical insights that we can use to predict customer, use our customer predictions to change what we buy? Do we want to have, very strong innovation from our supplier relationships? I mean, there's all different personas or different visions you can have, and you've really got to start with the enterprise. That should somewhat dictate where you want to invest in best of breed technologies, where you want to invest in sort of the additional kind of emerging technologies on top of that core platform. That's my view.
But imagine, if you think about it, if you think about healthcare, we're dealing with a cardiovascular surgery patient on one side, an orthopedic implant patient, somebody who has diabetes coming into the hospital with kidney failure, and so on. They all get the same stuff coming into the room. What if we were able to build some type of analytics that said, what are we using on these particular patients, and do some predictive knowledge on these cardiovascular patients use these kind of things in their rooms 89% of the time. Let's buy that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Don't waste your time on the stuff the diabetic patients use, unless they also have cardiovascular issues. But use the things buy the things that they actually use. That's analytics. But there's no such thing as demand forecasting in most healthcare institutions today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost
It's a great
none.
use case. It's a great use case example of looking at where is the leakage and the excess, and where are we not great at, so where can we improve how we serve our customers, and how do we optimize our supply chain and our supplier relationships to deliver better?
So I'm going to ask the audience a question here: low, medium, and high. And you can answer for your organization, or if you're a sponsor or a supplier, you can answer on behalf in aggregate of the clients you serve. How would you rate your level of maturity? So how many are in and it's okay, there's no judgment here. Low digital maturity. We got a couple brave folks, okay. Medium? Medium, yeah, that's fine. And high, anybody would? Oh, somebody wants to say high? No. So nobody high maturity? Okay. I saw your hand go up, so that's yeah, that's okay. So that's interesting. So, so Linda, we have a clear need. We have a clear need, and Amy was getting this a little bit. How do we realize these benefits? How do we ensure that what we signed up for actually comes to pass? Namely, the CFO will sign off on this.
So I'll take it in kind of two parts as well. So, going through, as Amy said, some of this source to pay, automation, that's really something around, if you're very fragmented and you're pulling in all of this spend, it is all about how are you growing your spend under management, so tangible expectations. Keep it simple from two. I did very simple from two charts. What is it gonna look like when we get there? Spend under management. How are you really going to manage that with a better source to pay system? It's also, you're going to catch the more savings as a result of growing your spend under management and being thoughtful about how you want to set expectations around that, so you don't over commit, but do it realistically around that. And then it's really the user experience. I don't really want to say cycle time because let's be real, that all varies. You can measure it, but it's really going to be about the customer, your internal, stakeholder customer experience around how they're using it. Do they know how to use it? Do they come back? Things like that. So that's one is those types of very tangible measurements that you put forward and continue to monitor. The other thing that I think is critically important is we often don't get much time or runway to perform. So in my last organization, it was too big and cumbersome to try to put in a source to pay first. And people didn't really believe in procurement. They say, come bring it together. We really had antibodies against centralization. It was all business unit focused. So, took a different approach for that, which was build the spend analytics so that, I think as Jerry said, build that power with data. Data that we shared with and gave full transparency to the business unit, full transparency to our CFO, so that we could begin harvesting savings and start getting our commodity teams working across business units because no one had the data, no one saw it. So we became, if you will, a powerhouse of data that enabled so many things. Bringing the CFO on board, instead of giving us, let's just say, savings challenges, they gave the business units savings challenges, and we were a vehicle by which they could get improvement, in their savings. So we became a tool, if you will, to them. And that brought everybody toward us versus us, again, being in that, oh wait, we just saved you so much money, we just changed all your suppliers. That's what we've lived with in so many cases. Aren't you gonna be happy? You're now flying Delta. And now, how do you really change that dynamic? And I think that was extremely successful.
All right, so
we have some people from live stream with a couple questions, if I could.
Absolutely.
Go ahead and ask.
And then I'm gonna
This
bounce.
person is calling in from Central Time, so they're staying up late, and they're really happy that we have an all-women panel. So this question is for Erin and Jerry. How do we gently nudge those who are resistant to change? Do we just stop reviewing Lotus notes?
And they're over there.
I'll go first. I have a very funny brief story to tell you. I was with PwC in the late 90s. We used Lotus Notes. I rejoined them in 2011. I said to myself, gee, I hope we are still using Lotus Notes. Guess what? We were using Lotus Notes. So anyway, so getting people in the tent is kind of interesting. I always call it, I want my stakeholders part of governance of what I'm doing with any initiative. I want them inside my tent, and I've said this as I'm saying it to you, to my Nobel Prize winning doctors. Erin knows the story. I want you inside my tent pissing out, as opposed to outside my tent pissing in. Sorry, I'm offending anybody. But I've had doctors tell me, you can't tell me what my residents are going to use. Okay, fine. But you and I are going to work together on those suppliers, on those supplier agreements. And you and I are going to work together on the visibility within those supplier agreements. So either we work together, or you're going to pay through the nose, and you won't have a medical school much longer. So let's chat about that, shall we? They're in the tent.
Erin?
So I think it's important to set adoption figures, right? Adoption is a bell-shaped curve, right? For anything you do. You got 10% that's going to hop on right away and be really excited about a digital transformation. Maybe less than 10%, to be honest, right? And you got your 80 that are going to kind of your normal communications, your training. They're going to slowly get there. And then you've got probably maybe 20% that are just not going to do it, right? I'll pick on somebody named Dave. I apologize if anybody here. But Dave's the guy that he's been in the department a long time. He's seen these things come and go, and he's just going to sit there and watch you, right? He's going to slap open his flip phone, right? Because he doesn't want technology. He doesn't want to do it, and he's just going to sit there and resist you, sometimes passively, sometimes aggressively, right? What we've done in the past that has worked, and you got to pick your days wisely, but but partner with him, develop a relationship with him, right? If you can turn that guy, everybody else is going to follow, right? Because the rest of the organization is shamed into getting on the bus, right? There's a little sibling rivalry, even if he's not doing it perfectly, right? It's going to move the organization forward. So for those people that are lagging on the adoption, whether that's a central office partnering with them, right? Whether it's their local change champion, it's probably a lot of both. But don't be afraid to engage one-on-one with somebody, right? Don't be afraid to hold their hand. Sit with them, schedule a meeting, go out and visit them for God's sakes, right? It's worth it, right? It pays off very well if you can actually move that person forward.
Well, I also think celebrating their contribution to the win,
Absolutely.
as opposed to taking credit for it yourself or your part in it, is really, really critical. Because if you can celebrate that and make that visible to the CEO or the C-suite or anybody else who makes a difference to Dave, then Dave's going to be your buddy for life.
Well, let's be honest, nobody's celebrated him probably in a while, so like, he's gonna send him some swag, put him in the newspaper article,
Exactly.
get a quote, you know,
Project
and really,
Hercules,
yeah.
All right.
We have an active live stream this evening. People love the all-lady panel. Amy, this question is for you. Who ultimately owns responsibility for digital intelligence or data in a digital organization?
Okay, so who owns data?
Oh, wow.
That's a tough one. I mean, we all do, right? It's our blood flow. We all have to be responsible for it. That's a tough one. I mean, who owns the data? I think that there's a couple different ways you can look at that, right? Who's kind of processing and inputting the data? I mean, when you think about like procurement data, I'm going to speak to procurement data, which is typically your supplier master, catalog master on the indirect, item master on the direct side, and contract master, and then you've got like product master and customer master and other stuff. I kind of see a couple different approaches to that. I think when you're talking about who's actually inputting it, more and more I see that going into like a shared service center where all data is by one group, handled by one group, right? So we used to have AP put in the supplier master, the buyers put in the catalog stuff, maybe sourcing put into something, the contracts team put the contracts in. Frankly, that's not all that efficient, and it's not anybody's strength. When you say here, we've got a team of data people who are gonna manage our master data, and some governance around it, I think that from a sort of owns the transactional piece of it is a step up. I think there's another piece of the data though, which is the governance when we're talking about master data. How do we structure it? Who does what part of it? You know, what do we cleanse, what do we not cleanse, whatever. That is really a leadership role, I think, and you can have someone in the organization kind of, you know, with that governance model responsibility, but I think it needs to be a senior leader type of decision, who that sits with. Like a lot of things in procurement, I was trying to explain this to procurement people today, like a lot of things in procurement organizational structures, it kind of depends on who is the competency and the interest in taking things on. Like there's no one master best procurement org model. I think though that as procurement people, we need to get better at leveraging the tools outside of our little source to pay bubble. When I look at what the people in finance are doing, and some of my firms with advanced analytics and data lakes and everything, their data governance and their structure and their capabilities for analytics are so far beyond what we do in procurement but they don't necessarily understand our use cases. So I would say that there should be an overall enterprise team, and procurement needs to spend more time with those people who are probably in FP&A somewhere, but maybe not, and leverage those capabilities for our use cases, because I think there's a big gap there in most organizations.
All right, so I want to build, so back to Linda, what do you do if the business doesn't agree with the data you present them? So the challenge that you because the way you frame that out, and you say here, and they say, I don't believe it.
Right. It's and it happens, and as much as we try to present, let's just call it good data, there's times when we also miss. So I think you have to engage into the dialogue with your business unit partners or your internal stakeholders. You have to be willing to be transparent. So go dive down and find out that we're right or they're right around the data. And really keeping them engaged is the most important thing. It's not, you're not really trying to win the who's right or who's wrong. You know, and I would say to you, what we tried to do as well, when you say who owns data, we got, you know, business unit partners and an FP&A partner in each of the business units, because we did have 13 ERP systems and we had no conformance to GL codes, and there was no way to call something the same across all the businesses. And so that really was the partnership created with the FP&A and with the business unit operations to say, okay, here's your data, help us cleanse it and create rules together, because then again, remember, they're empowered to go save money. They have a vested interest. They've got business unit goals and objectives and financial objectives, and it's like, how do we help them? And I think that worked really well over time, to have that, you know, we called it, right, it was a data cleansing partnership, because, and it's not something that's one and done. I mean, unfortunately, it's got to be a regular routine of how you're validating and revalidating with your own ways of checking from a procurement, right? Knowing your outliers, knowing what to question. You get smarter over time, but then really engaging them on an ongoing
I like how you
basis.
said digital, wait, what did you say, the partnership, the data cleansing partnership?
Yeah.
There we
So
go.
piggyback a little bit on what Linda's saying, we've had good success where if we were presenting to a group of controllers, CFOs, SVPs, whatever it is that might be from a different functional unit, finding one or two advocates within that unit to preview the data with, any gotchas, any, you know, we've all walked in and had one or two words on a slide that just send up red flags, and you're like, are we not good? Like, where did this go, right? How did this conversation walk? So previewing that material with somebody outside in that functional unit that comes from that background, I mean, you'd be amazed at the difference in a little bit, you know, one or two words as you're presenting to a CFO group that just set them flying and
Yeah.
don't mean what, you know, yeah. So preview that material with one or two advocates, clean it up, answer any of the questions that they have, right, in that preview, put them on the slide so you can really focus on what the message you're trying to communicate, rather than those flags that you're never really gonna have because it's a different unit.
Okay.
I was gonna say, one of the biggest projects I had early on in my career was for a major entertainment company with 19 different business units in North America. So we were pulling all the systems information from all these different business units, including a system called Tinkerbell. That these were homegrown systems, they had ERP systems, they had combination, God knows what systems, we were pulling them all together. But what we did was we left digital breadcrumbs in our data to track back to what contract it was, to who told us this was the right information, to who signed off on it before we even left the building. And that's how, when somebody challenged us, we said, oh, well, so-and-so signed off on this. Are you saying that your person is incorrect? So,
Great. So just, we're going to have a Q&A in about 10 minutes. So for the live streamers and for you, if you want to start getting your questions ready, we can, that way we can have a vibrant discussion. I want to go back to the building the brand of procurement. And Aaron, I'm going to ask you to chime in this because you brought this up about selling digital procurement to your stakeholders. How do you gave some examples, but how do you do that like a more formal, how do you think about a more formal program? Because what I really took out of your comment was this you're really creating a brand. So could you talk about it at its macro level a bit?
So I think the first thing is, don't go out telling people you're going to digitally transform the way they do market. Don't use the words digital procurement transformation or anything like that, right? Because, you know, we started this by Amy defining what it is, right? And if we don't have a firm definition, people are going to glaze over and maybe go Google it and have no idea what you're doing, and next thing you know, like the robots are taking away their job, and it's just over, right? So you really do have to brand what you're doing, and we've had success in looking to promote the outcomes rather than how you're going to get there, right? So look to say, the what's in it for me, right?
Yep.
So, hey Sue, you complain to me every 2 weeks about that report that you have to do that takes you 4 hours that you hate. There was a software company and I think they've got this new thing, RPA, right? Like maybe we can automate it and give you that time back, right? And so you're solving a problem, you're not threatening them with rewards that they don't know, right? And that piggybacks into what it is for them. If it's 4 hours every 2 weeks, that's 8 hours back in her month, right? And she can go home earlier, she can do that other thing that's on the back burner. So crafting in a way that it's the what's in it for them, the positive outcome, and really kind of work focused, I would say is really a big thing. At UC, we partnered with the Cal State University system, right? And it's about our collaborative partnership, right? It's not about a digital transformation. It's about how 2 university systems are partnering together to keep tuition low. That doesn't sound like digital procurement transformation to me, right? So figure out what it is and sell that storyline, the what's in it for me, what's in it for the organization, what's in it for the customers. A lot of times we forget what's in it for the person, right? And at the end of the day, you're turning their work life upside down, right? You're asking them to go through some discomfort. You're asking them to probably work longer hours. You're asking them to learn something new. What is it for them personally at the end of the day, right? We all know change management. You gotta have the elephant in the rider. Like appeal to them emotionally, not with the facts of I'm gonna give you a new system, right? It's not gonna get anybody there.
Great. So Jerry, how do you know if you're ready for digital procurement?
If you say digital procurement and people look at you with puzzled looks, you're not right. There's different definitions of digital procurement, as many definitions as there are people in the room. So the way I love how Erin positioned it, it's what's in it for them. How are you improving their day-to-day work lives? What are you doing to shorten the time they have to do certain tasks or complete the work that they're doing in order to appease their bosses and the people in their stakeholders, right? What information or transparency are you providing to them? It's really critical that you don't position this digital procurement. I'm sorry. I think that's one of the most brilliant things to do is just not position it as such. There's all different ways of starting. Like I said, start off with spend transparency, move to some automation, and understand where digital procurement really doesn't need to play a part. So we dealt with $49 million in AP aging, going back to 2012 when I came to the Bay Area recently. I won't say that. Anyway, a lot of that had to do with receiving issues. $40 million of it was receiving issues. And people signing off that they got the stuff. Had nothing to do with digital procurement. Had everything to do with them doing their job.
All right, so I'm going to build on that. So Erin and Amy, this is for you, but I'm going to come back to Erin because we were talking about this beforehand. Talk about robots taking away their jobs. People like you and I write articles and we get people all wound up. And,
It's all about the fun, right?
yeah, exactly. So the people that are Googling digital procurement.
I just stayed at a hotel and my serving staff was robots.
Yes.
In
Wow.
Chicago,
Yep.
no joke. Leo and Cleo were my robots.
Nice.
Wow.
Very nice.
We just
Now
put
that's
robots
awesome.
in supply chain and Stanford.
All right, so can you talk about FTE reduction through all this automation or not? And then
Yeah.
and Erin knows why I'm going to come to her next.
So, well, I mean, if anyone's seen Hackett data, Hackett's all about like the number of FTEs and process costs and, technology for efficiency as well as effectiveness and experience. I think that for a lot of like the base, when I talk about core technology, that is a piece of it. The reality is a lot of jobs have been eliminated through automation already, right? I actually think we're sort of at a point where for a lot of things we're kind of there. I don't think it's digital that's going to do that. When we talk about the next generation of specifically in procurement, the next generation of technologies, assuming you have you're not dealing in paper so you got AP and, you know, with 25 people, they go to automate AP, your P2P, they're probably gonna go down to 5 people. But a lot of that has already happened, right? When we're talking about really the emerging technologies that help us in the strategic side with sourcing, with category management, with stakeholder management, with supplier management, you know, risk management, all of it, and a lot of the people in the room have those kind of technologies. A lot of that, I believe, is going to make us more efficient, but we're talking about knowledge workers, so there's a lot of judgment still involved. When we're using AI and everything, I think it's going to actually help us go broader and deeper and cover more. I mean, no procurement organization is covering 100% of their spend and spending as much time with their stakeholders and suppliers as they should, because they're sitting there going through spreadsheets and trying to see their spend visibility and trying to understand market intelligence on the categories they're buying from and all of this. So I don't think we're going to add more people. That's probably not the direction, although most CPOs would argue they need more people, and they probably do, to get to sort of a balance point. There is some data out there, and there's some Hackett data that's fairly recent that I've seen the analysis on that looks at like, oh, we're going to reduce headcount by 40% in procurement. What that means is not that we're necessarily going to reduce 40% of our employees. There's already a shifting from operational, transactional to knowledge work. I think that we're going to cover 40% more of what we should be doing because we've taken out a lot of the things and we're getting better insights that allow us to make better judgment-based decisions. So that's my personal, controversial, edgy opinion that we're probably
So Erin's going to build on that.
Go on.
So I'll tell you a tale about a digital procurement transformation that actually resulted in an increase in FTE count. So when we built a business case for our first transformation, of course we're going to be more efficient, right? And we have all these tools and we won't need these people, and of course we won't lay them off, we'll just redeploy them and all that, and maybe they're covering, you know, what one person did well at one location, they're going to cover the whole. No, it's not that way, right? So at least maybe in a mature organization, but we were low to medium, right? So what I say now is that, and what I see looking in the rearview mirror was we didn't reduce headcount because our values skyrocketed, right? And we were doing so much more. So our goal wasn't to just, if here's where we were, to get up to here with less people, right? Like we're up here. And if you can phase things into incremental changes, right, and returns, you can build that business case because you're getting that momentum. You always have to look at, you know, you're not going to ask for $250 for a fully loaded FTE, you know, if you're not returning that value most times. But it's a really easier case to make if you are returning that value in some other way, or you're delivering, you know, a better supplier relationship or higher adoption or lower risk. And so we have increased our FTE count quite a bit. Quite substantially, but the value that we're delivering is a completely different world from what we were. So I would caution anybody to say we're definitely reducing headcount or we're definitely increasing. You gotta figure out where you want to go with it, right? And
yeah, we did not sync up on her story in my answer before, but I will add to that the ROI on procurement FTEs, like the procurement organization, is between 4 and 12x. So that means even a decent, like average organization, what they spend on people and process costs, labor and outsourcing costs, they get back about 4x in savings. Now, that's not even looking at the other higher value that we could talk about for hours. So why? I mean, where else in the organization do you get that kind of return on your investment? If finance is looking at it in a smart way and looking at the return they're getting and really quantifying the value well, why would you cut people from that? You would want to be bigger, broader, deeper. You know?
Absolutely. And in certain organizations like higher ed, that bottom line, cutting all that between your top and your bottom is really hard to do, right? And procurement's one of the only departments within all of higher ed that can actually do it. So telling that gets us a seat at the table, and you know, if we can continue saying it, you're not going to cut salaries, you're not going to cut benefit, we have no direct materials. What have you got? You've got your procurement set, right?
Well, and I don't know about in your organization, but in our organization, our basic procurement people are hourly workers and they're unionized. So we have to watch. We have to watch. Everything's built as non-labor cost reduction. Non-labor cost reduction. We're not focusing on labor reductions. We're looking at labor optimization. So to stay in, you're gonna learn some new stuff, but we'll give you the tools to do that.
Okay.
And if you opt out,
Yeah,
great.
there is a shift there, and there's a talent shift,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
not to say it's all going to be easy.
No, it won't be.
All right, so let's build on this. So Linda, can we create value beyond cost savings? So we've been talking about 4x, 12x. Cost savings is one thing. What about creating value beyond
Yeah,
that?
absolutely, and I think that as we're laying foundation and improving our performance as an organization, you are getting the business to ask for higher value activity. So instead of, going out to bid, it becomes this evolution of how are we creating a strategy? How are we bringing you in earlier? Oh, how could you go create a supplier summit for us so that we are really sharing technology roadmaps? And that conversation keeps changing as the teams are delivering higher value. But that takes time, and it takes really working with the partners to understand what are new ways of approaching what could be the same problem, the same situation. We've got another $100 million of equipment to buy. Instead of just turning that crank, how could we do that? So I think it's really around a lot today. You'll see data security. So we have to broaden our minds, right? Data security, enterprise risk are key enablers. Understanding suppliers, working with that, bringing that, partnering with your enterprise risk businesses. It goes the gamut. Insurance, tax. These are partnerships that are coming together now with your procurement being the core contact and relationship owner with the supplier. So we can't forget that that's going to be invaluable as we really start branching out and bringing that supplier into the business in a multifaceted way. Not just on value, creating value through cost reduction ideas. Sure, that's already been there. But I think our businesses really need a whole lot more from us now that are much more important. And again, understanding that the CIO, what is their platform? Data security is on every CIO's agenda today. So bringing innovation, bringing new suppliers and new ways of doing things, I think is really the way it's moving. And do that. And I would say be selective. Be selective in your organizations. Don't peanut butter spread it. CIO is a great place to start in some of those areas, where they really do have need for more.
Great, thank you. Any live stream questions?
We do. We're active tonight.
Let's fire away at those. Quick, let's do some
This
rapid
one
fire.
is for Jerry. In your experience, as an organization grows more digital, does risk management, information security, and compliance keep up?
What's the last word?
Keep up.
Keep up?
Keep up.
Not necessarily. So what I've seen is that organizations grow at different rates and departments grow at different paces. And sometimes IT security can lag behind the needs of the organization. And so, for example, in healthcare, cybersecurity of healthcare devices is very important because you have patient information embedded on an IV pump. And that IV pump is connected to the network. How do you keep that network secure if somebody can tunnel in through an IV pump? Just basic stuff like that. If organizations haven't invested to keep up, they need to outsource. And there's a lot of requirements now by the government, et cetera, to pull those things up, a lot of compliance issues.
Well, and I think that's also partly our responsibility, right?
Sure.
To bring that to the CIOs.
Yes.
I mean, we're looking at cyber risk threat assessment scores, right?
Mhm.
We all heard about the MGM casinos where they
Mhm.
hacked into got the whales, bank accounts through the fish tank thermometer. So we're bringing those, yeah, yes.
It's a great story if you haven't.
So they sourced from a small supplier a nest for a fish tank, right? And hackers use that to get into the network and stole the bank accounts of their whales. Not good, right? So we do have some responsibilities procurement because somebody in procurement probably thought that, signed up with that supplier or whatever. And we do talk to each other, right? And we do know what's out there. And CIOs have a lot to worry about, right? So I think it is partly our responsibility as well to try to keep them up to speed with us.
Well, this is not going to be a plug for HPP, but supplier fitness. I mean, Target, Best Buy, Home Depot, all those hacks came through suppliers. So getting the suppliers to a certain level of, I'll steal her words, but fitness, because it is important, and we do absolutely have responsibility. Yeah. Okay, next question.
And then final live stream question. Dr. Eloise, this one's for you actually, as the moderator. Keep everyone on their toes tonight. What are 2 or 3 of the biggest trends for 2020 that we should know about in digital?
Interesting. Great
Well,
question.
okay, so number 1 is cyber. So this one it's elevated itself in the last year significantly. I think the certainly value creation beyond cost savings, which is why I deliberately asked that question, because I'm trying to learn myself. But I think more and more people, we've jammed so much cost savings out of these, of suppliers over the years, and so how do we start to, but it did not want me to talk. But getting beyond cost savings, because I think as you talked about building the bridge to the other folks, to the other departments, and really building that, you can't do that and just talk about cost savings. At a certain point, people are like, I don't care, I don't actually. This is the worst part. I don't believe you. And so, how do we create value beyond that? They're probably the 2 biggest ones going in. I hesitate to say automation, but that is actually a big, as you think about the sourcing and upstream activities. So I'm trying not to look at Ed, but I mean, you're starting to see a lot more of the intelligent enterprise, which, and you mentioned demand planning, starting to go back, and this is the moniker I use. Digital removes your excuses. There's no more excuse not to do demand planning. There's no more excuse to have bad synergies between planning and sourcing as the handoff there. So I think those are the 3 trends that I feel like are just going to drive us right into 2020. So, but with that, let me open up to the audience. Any questions or comments or things we missed or pressing questions? Yes, in the back.
Yeah, I have a question regarding early engagement from stakeholders towards procurement. What are some of the ways you'd recommend to get stakeholders to engage early with procurement?
Make sure we talk loud. It's a little noisy.
You might want to repeat the question.
So why don't we do fire?
Everybody on the stream, it's not us.
Okay.
We're okay.
Yeah. Aaron, you want to take that one and early engagements?
Sure. I like to handpick them, to be perfectly frank. So find somebody if you're a large global company, you won't know, but find somebody that can recommend a change champion. They don't have to be the most tech savvy. It helps if they are a little bit, but they have to be someone that's relationship building, right? Okay to speak out, okay to work with somebody, okay to dedicate some time. And so I'd say I handpick them, right? And bring them in and really start them at the beginning and say, here's what I'm thinking. Let them help you craft it, right? For the buy-in, and you'll get a better outcome because you've got people that are actually doing the work. Make sure you're cross-functional and at all levels of the organization.
Great. Question there.
First of all, thank you for your insights tonight. Very, very useful. My question brings it sort of back. I put my hand up at the beginning. I said devil child, right?
Yeah.
So when you asked the question,
Yeah.
and I actually think it's both. And you spent a lot of time on the sort of child prodigy area tonight. So I'd like to know what you think about the sort of devil child portion, meaning there's always another transformation. I've worked in a tech company for 30 years, a great deal of that time was in operations and procurement stuff. So there's always a new transformation, and procurement is always competing for the same resources as every other group. Marketing wants transformation, sales wants transformation, finance wants transformation. How do you compete? So that's my perspective on the devil child, right? you're always competing for the same thing for the next transformation. Love to hear your perspective.
We'll wait for this question. Whatever that is, it can't be good.
Yeah, but it's like
Linda, you want to
Sure,
take this one
I'll
first?
start with that. You know, it's, again, as I said, it's really important to understand what the corporation's objectives are, what the corporation's, you know, going through, right? How are you as a procurement organization empathetic and understanding the changes in and the investments that need to be made across the board? So just because otherwise we just go in there like kind of the spoiled child that says, well, you know, I just want it, and it's like, come on, really understand. Then I think it's really, once you understand that, starting to really position how, you know, what is it that you're really trying to do, and how can you tie some threads with what the businesses need or the other functions need. How do you work, you know, more synergistically with them? So we've done that. You know, I think there's been times when it is literally a portfolio management conversation at the top, and you have to negotiate for sometimes a reduced scope, start smaller, build. It really is going to be dependent upon some of the financial, you know, resources in the company. We got stalled with some budget challenges during the middle of our Ariba implementation at McKesson, and we proposed that we would do self-funding to get it finished. So, and what we did with that is we just sort of skimmed off a little bit of the savings to finish it. But it was critically important to the business. It was the best way for us to make that happen. We got support from the CFO and, you know, shared services government support to go do it. So I would say, you know what, why not get creative around that? There are times when you need your own incubator. You need your nest egg. You need to start getting somewhere. And so that was something that we did. And I would say some of the other businesses started following suit because it was a lot easier for us to work that way and still return great value.
So I agree with Linda, but I think there's another part to your question about kind of how we look at change or transformation culturally. Our lives are we're going through a digital transformation in our personal lives, right? Like every day, the things around us change, and we've just accepted that fact, right? We go to bed at night and our iOS and our apps update, and we wake up in the morning and it's a new user interface, and we learn how to use it, right? Because we've accepted that as part of a change, right? It's culturally acceptable. How, on the flip side, who promised you that when you go to work from 9 to 5, nothing's gonna change there, right? It's a very interesting lens about how our personal versus our professional is. And so, if you can, I joke about it with my staff when they complain. I said, oh, you gotta know, your UI on your phone's different today, right? Like, you don't complain about that to me, right? So I think you need to,
True that.
right?
Yes.
So I think it's also a cultural thing where it's a business transformation, right? Digital otherwise, like, what is it, Disney Plus launched today?
Yeah.
Netflix better be figuring out what they're gonna do as well as everyone else. Maybe that's not a digital transformation, but whether it's digital or otherwise, life changes, right? And at the enterprise level, you agree that you're going to change and keep up with it. There's Blockbuster, right? Everybody else, right? So I think it's in the way we talk about it, the messaging, how we just accept it, and that's part of, we try to instill it as part of the company culture. And that's how you're gonna get a win, and it's not gonna be every time something changes, it's this horrible ordeal.
I want to ask Amy, I'm going to build on your point, because I took a subtext to your point about and so Amy, I'm curious about your perspective, because it seems like we're always in a transformation, right? And it feels like we're it's sort of overdone. So do you see that, like we're getting transformation fatigue?
Oh, there's a huge amount of fatigue, and like you and I have both been in professional services for decades, right? And it's like, what is it now? I mean, when I started it was Y2K, right? And, how much did we pour into Y2K? And then, it's always something, right? And it feels very urgent. I really like what you said though about, organizations to stay on top, to be leading, they're continuously evolving. And when we think about it from a customer-facing external standpoint, like, of course, you're constantly unless you, I mean, even if you've got like Cheerios, which have been the same forever, they haven't been the same forever. They changed, they reconfigured. The Cheerios ingredients and the flavor and everything, the nutrition profile changed since my kids were babies eating Cheerios. I look now and I'm like, every product and every company has to evolve from an external perspective. Why would that be any different from the internal perspective? So I think when you think of it as like everything is some big bang transformation, it's a scary word. It means everything has to go upside down and we're going to lay off, a third of our workforce. Yeah, nobody wants to do that, right? But when you think about it from we are continuously evolving, we're keeping up with the Joneses, this is how we stay competitive. There's no question we have to do that. So I do get a little bit fatigued. I mean, there's definitely a ton of fatigue out there, but I get a little annoyed, I guess, by the whole concept that it all is big bang after big bang after big bang. Because if you think of it as like we're just continuously evolving, that's just how everything works. Right. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly fatigue, and I empathize with that. It's just, it's not something we can stop you fall behind, right?
Can I piggyback on that? I agree with you. My question is, what's the CFO perspective, right? We've talked a lot about digital transformation with respect to the users and how it's experienced, but what is the CFO perspective in this context?
Yeah, so in this context, I mean, I think CFOs have a lot on their plates and they have a lot of different priorities, and this is where I feel like procurement, really either we have trouble, we have trouble moving forward, and I don't blame the CFO, I don't blame procurement. I mean, part of my new role is educating non-procurement people and the challenges procurement has, and a conversation I had today, I should post something, they're like, but all these things, they were trying to do these things 10 years ago and they're still trying to do these things. Why don't they accomplish anything? And I'm like, it's not that they're not trying, I mean, there's just a lot of headwinds, right? We don't necessarily have the budget we would pick. We don't necessarily have all the people we would pick or all the talent. CFOs have a lot of priorities. CIOs have a lot of priorities. We're not, we don't have the place we want. We don't have the technology we want. I mean, there's a lot of things there, and I think that that's a challenge. For 10 years we've been talking about higher value, right? Mm-hmm. And we're still measured by savings. It's on those CFO scorecards. Well, why hasn't the CFO changed their mind? And it's baby steps. There are companies that get there, but I think that part of what digital does for us is it helps us get over some of those humps. Like, we can't skip puberty for sure, but we can go through it a little faster and it can be a little less painful. So I think that, CFOs, if they understand the value of what the procurement organization does, and again, we go back to that ROI, like where else are they getting that ROI? And they're aligned with the business and what the CEO needs and the market and CMO and everybody else, then this should all steer us in the right direction. I know that's easier said than done, but you kind of need all of those things to align.
And if you think about it, industries move through stages of maturity just like companies do.
Yeah.
Companies within them, they're all competing with each other, right? Within a particular industry in different segments of it. And then within those companies, different functions have different stages of maturity, and they need to support each other in different areas. So HR might be behind the times, procurement might be ahead of the times, IT might be right in the middle. And you have to figure out how to mitigate those impacts across the board. But the CEO and the CFO are going to have to figure out the external place in the marketplace and how they're competing in the world versus how they're going to continually improve in order to get there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're just going to fail.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I used to tell people, and this was actually pre-digital push, that for procurement organizations to really go from very mature to very mature strategic partners, trusted advisors in an organization, something needs to happen. You're either going to get a new CPO or a new leadership team or a new CEO or CFO. You're going to have some external force where your market has changed. You're going to have some M&A activity that's threatening. Like, something needs to change in your industry or internally to push that.
Point, right?
Yeah, it's got to be an inflection point, and now it's like we all have to constantly change without that inflection point. So it's a little bit harder to do that.
Right. I mean, it's table stakes, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is.
digital is table stakes. But the question is, how does the CFO, and Linda, you reported to a CFO.
Yes.
I mean, how does the CFO come to appreciate anything above cost savings?
I mean, it was definitely a challenge, although I think I was fortunate in that, James really, he always used the word trusted advisor. He measured our success by that. He said, I'm gonna know you're successful when I'm in a boardroom, I'm in, C-suite meetings, and the C-suite is saying your team's doing a great job. He let me set my own cost savings goals. I mean, that's very different than I think what I've experienced in the past. But again, it was, baby steps, building credibility, and somebody that had more insight into the power of a team like that. And trust me, it wasn't all pretty, because I told you, we just, budgets still came, and you had to do the, give and take and the ebbs and flows. But generally, it was, a pretty good place to be. And I think working with the CFOs and the C-suite on that is critical. So.
Okay.
I was going to say, you also have to think about that cost savings can be achieved in a number of different ways, right? So it might be a utilization initiative. I've got a blood test issue at Stanford that I'm talking to the lab people about utilization of metabolic profiles and redundant tests and how they can bill for those. It's not a true procurement issue, but it is.
Yeah,
It's a different way of discussing it, different way of framing the problem.
So, with that, I think we've come to the end. I'm going to ask the panelists just for a rapid fire one piece of advice as a parting sort of gift. But before I do that, I just want to, just can be good, can be bad, whatever, so you can think about your answer there. But again, I just wanted to thank our sponsors for tonight, RSN, Rapid Ratings, Cinetrade, HPP, and TechWisdom. They're all represented here, so if you have an interest, please talk to them. So, Amy, I'll start with you. What's your one quick piece of advice?
Sure. I'll say it all starts with your stakeholders in the business. Whatever you're really trying to do, whether it's what you're trying to measure, driving digital, driving adoption, reducing maverick spend, start with asking them what they need and what their end goal is, and then figure out how what we do with our supply base, how we leverage that to solve that problem.
Great.
We need that goal.
Linda.
I would say, go after the, quick wins and build upon your successes and be okay with doing things in phases and just celebrate those successes along the way.
Aaron?
I would say look at this with the right lens, right? Transformation, evolution is part of life, personal, professional. All of this transformation is a foundation for success, right? And we need to just keep it moving.
Excellent. Jerry?
You may be forced to move a little bit faster than you want to go. And so sometimes you have to broker those discussions with the people who are pushing you faster and say, hey, I can do these 3 things that are on my roadmap, or I can do these 2 things and the thing you want, but I can't do all of them. So figure out how to negotiate those, because that's what you have to do.
Great. So thank you to the audience. Thank you to the live streamers. That was great fire questions. And we will conclude there. Sarah, anything else?
All right, let's give a Procurement rock. So I want to thank all of you for your time. I know we spent a lot of time planning and prepping, and thank you very much, Eloise, for facilitating and helping put the group together. If I could get the sponsors to come on stage, we're going to take a couple photos with the panelists. And with that, feel free to continue your conversations. And all of these ladies are really approachable and friendly. So connect with them on LinkedIn, reach out. They have amazing insights. So thank you. I think we're going to